Stephen Colbert said when Joe Biden was vice president, he was the most senior dissenting voice against a surge in Afghanistan back in 2008 and 2009. The war's been going on so long. Joe Biden's been trying to get the troops out since he was just regular old. Now he's Mountain Dew Baja Blast Extreme old. Colbert, the cost, a tragic loss of human life, and a duffel bag of your cash they called ghost money, because spending $2 trillion with no clear definition of victory is pretty spooky. Trevor, Biden is getting criticism for people who say if America leaves Afghanistan, then it will become a failed state, and that's a real danger. But on the other hand, America's been there for 20 years. Is it supposed to stay there forever? Because if that's going to be the case, then America should at least make Afghanistan a U.S. state. And the good news is that would eliminate Afghanistan's terrorism problem completely, because we all know that once terrorists are American, they're not terrorists anymore. They're just frustrated citizens who are having a bad day. Colbert said despite the fact that 2,400 service members gave their lives, the ongoing war in Afghanistan received not even a mention at the presidential debates. But how can you expect a ground war in Asia to compete with the urgent threat of windmill cancer? And Fallon, I like this joke a lot. During his remarks, Biden announced that the withdrawal would begin on May 1st. When the troops get home, they're going to be like, why are all the bars closed? From The Independent, just a week after Gutfeld premiered on Fox News, it was bumped by coverage of the continuing protests. A Fox News anchor said, "This is Fox News at night's breaking coverage of the third night of unrest in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, a worthy thing to cover." And they said Gutfeld will be back tomorrow. That didn't stop Twitter from making fun of it. Vox reporter Aaron Rupar said, "Only half a Scaramucci after its debut. Gutfeld is already preempted." Podcaster Brian Tyler Cohen said, "Okay, for once, Gutfeld made me laugh. We can all make fun of it. In its first week of ratings, it beat Jimmy Fallon and tied with Jimmy Kimmel." Interesting. This next thing isn't really comedy, but it's kind of fun. From the AV Club, and stay with me here, Steak-'em. As the AV Club says, Steak-'em, the sliced meat company that advertises its frozen cow flesh with Twitter musings on generational malaise and post-ironic observations about the corporate social media strategies it employs. This next one, it's not comedy, but it's pretty entertaining. Stay with me. From the AV Club, they wrote about Steak-'em, and as they wrote, Steak-'em. I need a deep breath before this. I've done this twice and failed already. Deep breath. Steak-'em, the sliced meat company that advertises its frozen cow flesh with Twitter musings on generational malaise and post-ironic observations about the corporate social media strategies it employs, has decided to pick a fight with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Sure, why not? AV Club describes Neil deGrasse Tyson as the scientist who won't let a series of sexual misconduct allegations interrupt his eternal quest to be the internet's most annoying pedantic troll. How do you really feel? After Tyson tweeted on Sunday that the good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it, Steak-'em had to reply. They wrote, "Log off, bro." But Steak-'em continued, as AV Club adds, for whatever godforsaken reason, per Steak-'em. The irony of Neil's tweet is that by framing science itself as true, he's influencing people to be more skeptical of it at a time of unprecedented misinformation. Science is an ever-refining process to find truth, not a dogma. No matter his intent, this message isn't helpful. The account continued its self-awareness act, saying, "Everything we do is based in self-interest to grow our business." And they signed off with their signature, Steak-'em bless. How do I get in a fight with Steak-'em? Steak-'em, you suck! Can you come after me? Actually, I kind of like Steak-'ems. The wife makes them like once a week, and they're really good. Neil deGrasse Tyson has not yet replied. AV Club says, he's been too busy fact-checking the lyrics of the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want. Steak-'em has continued baiting him, hoping that he'll offer a retort that will allow them to continue this exchange for several more days, boosting brand engagement all the while. I hear you. It's all about the marketing. From Collider, Adam McKay's working on his next film. It's called Don't Look Up. It pairs Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence as the leads. I think this sounds cool. I might be more excited about it than McKay. McKay says it's not the most high-concept, bizarre idea. The idea of a disaster movie in which people don't necessarily believe that the disaster is coming. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And it sounds like, something, I feel like I lived through this in 2020, like a disaster was coming and certain people, didn't want to believe it was coming. Adam says it goes back to the trope of the mayor from Jaws. Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name in a National Geographic. So it's two mid-level, very sincere astronomers who make the discovery of a lifetime, which is that a killer asteroid is headed towards Earth. They have to warn everyone, and they have to go on a media tour. It's them navigating our world. It's them navigating their equivalent of Twitter. It's them navigating the political landscape. It's them navigating talk shows and how they're perceived. It's DiCaprio and Lawrence trying to warn the world. I call it a dark comedy. That sounds awesome. And since he brought up Jaws, I watched Jaws last summer. Watch Jaws and pretend it's not a shark, pretend it's a coronavirus, and then watch like the first half of the movie. Clearly the second half of the movie is very shark heavy. But watch the first half of the movie where the town is like, we gotta keep the beaches open. I mean, it's just a shark. And it's so 2020. It is scary. McKay says this is kind of how it started. Then the pandemic hit. What that did was bring out what the movie's really about, which is how we communicate with each other. We can't even talk to each other anymore. We can't even agree. So it's about climate change. From Men's Health, your home for comedy news, Ronny Chieng thinks you should quit your after-work sports team and start fighting. Whoa! Glen, the one with the agent, not other Glen that I take road trips with. Glen, the one with the agent, he's on my volleyball team. Glen, Ronny Chieng says we should quit volleyball and start fighting. Here's what we're supposed to do. Ronny spoke to Matt Serra, UFC champion, and said, what should I do? Matt Serra said, go do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So at one point, Ronny Chieng tweeted Joe Rogan and asked him, where's a jiu-jitsu school? And Joe Rogan recommended one in New York. Chieng was hooked after one class. He found jiu-jitsu to be an excellent workout and great for technique. But then he got the most out of it from a mental aspect, saying, when you're doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you have to stay in the moment. You can't be thinking about the future. You can't be worrying about the past. I found it very therapeutic and meditative just mentally. That's my tip to everybody out there. If you're playing after-work sports and you're breaking your ankles because everybody thinks they're playing in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, go do Brazilian jiu-jitsu because straight-up fighting people, you'll have fewer injuries. All right, first Glenn. No more volleyball team. We're doing jiu-jitsu. Then I'll meet you at the closed down bar and we'll get some wings. I have a coffee update. As you may have noticed, I like to plug buymeacoffee.com/daily comedy news. And yesterday was a big shout out to Sea Gypsy, who bought me not one, not two, but 3 iced coffees. So here's the thing. I went to the donuts chain and I ordered on the app, by the way, so it's not like I misspoke. And I checked my order. I've got the receipt right here. I will read you the receipt. Walk-in number 763, John M., 6:54 and 57 seconds a.m. The order, I will read it to you. Are you ready? Large ice original cough, 4 caramel swirl, 4 skim. Clearly an iced coffee. When I walked in, the color looked not right, and that happens sometimes. Took a sip. Once I was in the car and halfway home, by the way. I took a sip. I think they took green tea and added caramel and skim milk. And that's not at all what I wanted. It's not very good. Poor Sea Gypsy. First, I butcher Sea Gypsy's name. Sea Gypsy's just trying to buy me a coffee. I went to buy said coffee. And I got this, I don't know what this is, mutant green tea caramel. That's not a thing, donuts chain. From thechieftain.com. I'm psyched I found this story. So one of the fun things about doing this podcast every day is I find stories that are off the beaten path. This one's pretty cool. Way out in the sticks of Pueblo West, a transplanted viral sensation has been drawing national attention for their connection to animals and comedic wit. Hayden Crystal is a professional stand-up comedian who came to Pueblo County from Brooklyn in New York City nearly 2 years ago. Hayden is also a former zookeeper and, quote, a big fan of critters who has worked with eagles and owls and has been bitten by snakes far more than any normal person has been bitten by snakes. Crystal's home in Pueblo West is teeming with dogs, horses, and donkeys with names like Donkey DeVito. You know you're smiling. Nickel Ass with 2 S's. Chicken Nugget and Squidward. Squidward recently went viral on TikTok with more than 10.5 million views for her peculiar corpse-like sleeping habits. Why do I even try to have a podcast when Squidward has 10.5 million views and I'm begging for an iced coffee? Ugh, so sad. Hayden Crystal said, had another neighbor tell me there's a dead horse in my yard, so I'm doing a life check. Hayden approaches a tan horse lying on its left side with its knees buckled underneath it and said, Squidward, are you dead? Squidward opens her eyes and sleepily rolls onto her stomach. Are you dead? No? Well, that's good, because I need you to stop sleeping like a carcass, because the whole neighborhood is freaked out. Thank you. Hayden Crystal is a comedian saying, I'm not unfamiliar with rural life. Like I was telling my mom yesterday how you can tell if roadkill is fresh. If you want to eat it, you drive through the day before and you spray paint anything that's there with an X. And when you come by the next day, anything that doesn't have paint on it, it's new. So I have like this whole repository of redneck knowledge that I forget is not standard until I go someplace real. Crystal is deaf and said throughout her life, communication has always been an issue and a struggle. That's what drew Crystal to stand-up comedy in the first place. Crystal said, if you tell someone a joke is just a different take on a relatable experience through a warped lens. So if I tell you a joke and you laugh at that joke, then I know that I've communicated exactly what I want and my exact perspective of the world in a way that you understand. I know I've made myself understood in the way I want it to be, and it's immediate. It's not fake. People don't pretend to laugh. That's not a thing. Crystal says, my hearing loss is genetic, which means that I was born with it, and it's also progressive, so it voted for Obama twice. Great joke. That is your comedy news for today. I had a Simpsons thing, but that horse thing took longer than I thought. Plus, I went on a coffee rant. Follow the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. See you tomorrow.